Left down the band with your left arm, start to the track.
Hello, I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of the Heartland. Every summer, the Winona Women's Resource Center sponsors a garden tour in the Winona area. In today's show, we're going to view some of the gardens on display in the summer of 2008. The first garden we visit is Sharon Kazarowski's garden on East Wabasha Street. Sharon has a charming cottage-style home with a small yard. The size of the yard was not conducive to Sharon's love of gardening, so Sharon solved her dilemma by tearing out most of the sod in the front and side of her home and turning it into a flower and herb garden.
And I try to have things that I try to have something blooming all the time. You know, a garden, you want texture, you want the odor, you want the look, you know, the flowers, you want everything. You want it to touch all your senses. Favorite part of the garden here and I've planted, miniature dwarf hostas and different kinds of sedums here, and the blue fescue grass was there. It takes me about 5 minutes to mow my grass. That's the other part of it. And I mulch, so the work part, really, once you've got the initial work done, the rest of the summer is pretty easy. And I do mulch. It makes a huge difference with how well your plants do. But I like the straw, or I use the cypress. I like that too.
Sharon prides herself in finding unusual plantings, such as her ornamental peppers and her special onion plant.
And this guy right here, which he's not very showy right now, is called an Egyptian onion, a walking onion. It gets these onion tops like this, and then they fall over, and then they start growing again from the ground up. So that's why it's called a walking onion.
She also enjoys planting special species which butterflies and birds are attracted to, such as kiss-me-kates and red spinach. Ornamentation is a strong part of the character of Sharon's garden. Several pieces she is most proud of are the hand-tooled garden flowers artistically crafted by her son.
I also have a dragon, a garden dragon. Can you see him? His name is Snapdragon. He takes care of all the demons. He was purchased at an art fair. I just like to have a combination of artifacts and the plants and rocks and water and whatever I can crowd into this little space.
The second garden on the tour is Roy and Mary Hazelton's River Retreat on Prairie Island Road. This garden has two very strong features. The first is the 45 by 20 foot pond in the front yard of the home. The pond was created by Roy himself. After the area was backhoed to a 4-foot deep hole, he, along with his brother-in-law, laid a ton of stones one by one at the bottom. Roy and Mary maintained the pond to keep it healthy for their numerous goldfish and koi. They also have a beautiful crop of water lilies. The area around the pond is landscaped with native grasses and well-chosen ground cover that grows around the limestone rocks that Roy personally piled high and designed in a tasteful manner. The different sections of the pond area are thoughtfully named for their grandchildren. Mary Hazelton enjoys the sounds of the waterfall from the swing which stands near the pond, and if she gets bored here, she can wander to her backyard, which holds the second strong feature of the Hazelton Gardens. The back of the yard overlooks a back channel of the Mississippi River. Across the water, directly in line from their backyard, lives a family of eagles who live in this nest year-round. Several side gardens full of perennials lead us to the riverfront yard. Along the way are several arbors with colorful clematis vines. There are also huge shade trees with hostas and bright-colored salvia and impatiens at their base. The Hazeltons have the unusual pleasure of using the Mississippi River as a backdrop to their beautiful gardens. The third garden on the tour is at the curve of the hill on Heights Boulevard. Visible from the road are tall, stately pine trees, which hide a very private and elegant garden. The backside of these trees overlook a swimming pool, which has its own garden beds flowing around the edge of the pool. Helga Heise, the owner of the home and designer of the gardens, likes to include the pine trees throughout the garden because they remind her of her original home in Germany.
The space around the pool is more or less an oversized patio, no grass to mow, and mostly are perennials. But mostly you see evergreens I very much like because it reminds me of Germany actually because we have lots and lots of pine trees and fountains everywhere. So that's my little German fountain because I saw that in a store in Minneapolis and it reminded me of a German old that they have along the roadside for people to have a little drink of water. My front yard was once the worst looking yard in the neighborhood, honestly. I just didn't know anything. And so my mother came one year from Germany and she said, what on earth is all this? So she got me started on it. And, I went sort of by hook and by crook, just learning as I went. I had tons of books. I never bothered to read them. I just kind of made mistakes and then, forever transplanting things, forever realizing I had the stuff in the wrong spots or moving them someplace else. So really, I learned by trial and error. I'm not a passionate gardener at all. I just I like the results. And so I had to do a little elbow grease to get there. So I have to do it, but I don't like to do too much elbow grease. So I use plants and I use things that don't give me much work and trouble. As you can see, most of the stuff is just self-sustaining. Tons of mulch in between the plants so I don't have to weed. And that's about it.
The Women's Resource Center is located in the center of Winona at 77 East 5th Street. Well, we're here at the Women's Resource Center with Suzanne Smith, who's one of the board directors of the Women's Resource Center. Mm-hmm. And Suzanne, I'd like to find out from you a little bit more about the garden tour. What is the connection of the Women's Resource Center to the garden tour?
Well, the garden tour has been one of our favorite fundraisers because it's a way to highlight the beauty in this community. And so about 300 people attend, and we raise about $9,000 to $12,000 for the Women's Resource Center.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Women's Resource Center. What does it provide for the community?
Okay. The Women's Resource Center has been around for 30 years. We're having our 30-year anniversary this year, and we provide advocacy free of charge for people that need it. Our advocates help people with talking about their experience, to accessing the resources, to going to court perhaps if they need to do that, to try and help them make decisions about what they need to do, and to just generally provide support for them, as well as we do have support groups as well.
Mm-hmm. Suzanne, give me some idea of how many people you help, say, per year.
Well, in 2007, our numbers for the past year were 988, something like that, and 91% of those people were women.
The services of the center are available to all victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in Winona County. Advocates respond to the needs of victims, including confidential housing 24 hours a day. Their crisis number is 507-452-4453. The money raised from the garden tour helps the victims with a reprieve from the violence in their lives and hopefully sets them on a path of freeing themselves into a new direction, which includes self-determination and self-respect. The next garden on the tour is located at the foot of the bluffs along Lake Boulevard. This stately home is owned by Dr. Wayne and Bonnie Kelly. The beautiful gardens surrounding the home and terraced up the side of the bluff in the back are all tended and cared for by the Kellys. Dr. Kelly takes us on a tour of the gardens and points out the interesting features.
I guess most people would describe it as a fairly elaborate garden, but to me it's just a hobby that has just kind of grown over the years. I came here 25 years ago when I purchased the property. This was a big grassy slope and it needed to be mowed, and I'm not a fan of mowing, so I decided I would create a garden. And I started small. We started by putting in the pool area first, created some rock walls, and I discovered that I like to build rock walls, and so that's been my passion for the last 25 years, is building rock walls and terracing the backyard. We redid the fence this year. It was a rustic cedar fence, and we decided to spruce it up a little bit to match the house. A number of terraces around the pool area that we've planted with a whole variety of mostly flowering shrubs. And of course, some flowers, annuals planted in between. There are stairs that go up the left side here, up to the gazebo. And I flank the stairs with, they're actually a columnar arborvitae, but I wanted to make them look like Italian cypress, which do not grow in this area. There's a couple of arches over the stairway. I wanted to give it sort of the look of Monet's garden at Giverny. Up the hillside here is a weeping purple beech tree. I tend to like weeping trees. They just seem to give a sense of tranquility. The gazebo is a nice place to relax and get out of the sun, and it's sort of your reward for making it to the top of the hill. And then there's a play area behind the gazebo. The entire property is hillside, so we needed a flat place for the children to play. So we created this court as more or less a play area. So above the court, it's terraced with a natural stone. We excavated this whole area out. Multiple truckloads of dirt were hauled out, and we salvaged just the natural stone from the hillside and created 3 terraced walls behind the court, which are now pretty much overgrown with foliage. This area along the walkway was planted with a low-growing evergreen. So this spring we dug them all out and redid this entire bed. We planted with a lot of perennials. Annual marigolds are here to give it color for this year. And the vine along the fence here is a variegated porcelain berry. It's starting to form berries, and the berries are beautiful in the fall. They're blue, pink, and white, and look like porcelain.
From the gazebo level, we walk back down the 70 Winona stone steps, which Dr. Kelly laid himself with a little help. Each stone weighing 300 pounds was hauled to the top and then slid into place. The steps take us back down to the house level, where we have a chance to view the charming window boxes, which are all planted and designed by Bonnie.
Yeah, Bonnie loves the window boxes and containers. So we have lots of container plantings. We like the coleuses because of the year-round color they give. Grasses tend to soften it a little bit. We love hostas. We have thousands of hostas. That's probably my favorite plant in the garden, is the ligularia. Just starting to bloom. They have some yellow daisy-like blossoms this time of year, but the foliage is what's most striking. Large, dark green leaves. The undersides are purple. I think quite striking year-round. So there's a couple of magnolia trees here that are quite nice in the spring, that are just covered with blossoms. There's a Japanese maple, the purple-colored tree, that is not for this climate zone, but it seems to do well here in a very protected area. We have a lot of shade plants. I like hydrangeas, and we've got a number of those scattered throughout the garden. There's a couple of tree hydrangeas here that are now in bloom. This weeping tree is kind of unusual. It's a weeping katsara tree, and I don't know that I've ever seen another one in any garden.
The terrace garden at the back of the Kelly home is a delightful outcome from Dr. Kelly's initial plan to avoid mowing grass. In the front, however, he left the lawn but bordered it with flower and conifer beds.
I like conifers. That's one of my favorite plants, I guess because you get the year-round green color. We had a landscape rock in the middle of the lawn here that I didn't like to mow around, so I started creating a little garden around it and put some conifers in. It has grown and grown, and almost every year I expand the garden. It starts eating up more of the lawn, which is good for Bonnie because she's in charge of mowing and she has less to mow. There's just a whole variety of different evergreens here. One of my favorite is the European weeping larch tree, and we call it the dragon tree because it tends to sort of spread horizontally across the garden. It kind of looks like a dragon. The spruce tree there was a tree brought home by one of the children from school many, many years ago. It was a little twig and we planted it and it's grown into a tree, but I keep it trimmed to keep it on the smaller side. And behind that is a pawpaw tree, which kind of blends nice with the conifers. There's another small Japanese maple back there. And I'm constantly moving plants as they outgrow their space. So every year the garden looks a little different.
The winding driveway with an old honeysuckle hedge divides the yard in the front of the house.
Yeah, the hedge kind of blocks the road and buffers, I think, sound from the highway. Gives us a little more privacy. And the hedge is a dwarf honeysuckle. And then I underplanted it with snow on the mountain, which is a ground cover. It tends to keep the weeds down and gives a little color contrast between the lawn and the hedge. When the old Winona County Courthouse was being restored a few years ago, they were replacing a lot of the decorative stonework. The discarded pieces were for sale, so I got a couple and thought they'd make nice garden ornaments, and I've placed them down here. My son and I dug this up one Memorial Day weekend and did the whole thing. And it's mostly shade plants, lots of hostas. There's a nice little boxwood hedge in the center there that curves around. You'll see some more ligularias through here, and we like to edge it with coleuses for the nice color it gives in the shade. I try and build a new wall every year. This one is made out of mostly recycled Bizant stone. I had a previous wall where our new garage was built, and I dismantled it and salvaged the rock to make a new wall.
The finished new wall can be seen under the maple on the right side of Dr. Kelly and Bonnie's beautifully manicured front yard. The last garden visited was Ray and Diane Raditz's country farm garden on County Road 25 in Lewiston. This garden was definitely worth the drive for the 300 or so people who attended the Women's Resource Center garden tour. Diane Raditz is a professional horticulturist, and her gardens reflect it. The driveway leads to a restored century-old farmhouse which sits on a working dairy farm. The charm of the home is enhanced by the rich, lush gardens which Diane and Ray both tend as their hobbies. The 145-acre farm was originally homesteaded in 1856 by Ray's ancestors. Ray and Diane are the 5th generation to own and live on the farm. Each garden is artfully designed by Diane, including the one by the potting shed where Diane spends much of her time preparing her plantings. Her gardens are rich and colorful with a good variety of perennials. She has a real sense of design. She mixes tall grasses with her perennials. Here she includes a window box full of colorful coleus to bring height to this garden. She even tacked on an old window where there wasn't one to bring a little symmetry to the old shed. Across the driveway from the farmhouse is Diane's kitchen garden. This may be a bit more formal than the original homesteader's kitchen garden, but it's just as functional. This attractive plot is where Diane has planted herbs and vegetables, not in rows as is typically seen in such a garden, but in sections bordered by alyssum or ornamental peppers. She plants the vegetables her family enjoys eating, like fresh, colorful chard, green peppers, and purple kale, but she does it with a decorator's touch. For instance, her kale is separated by a park bench, and the plantings flow in a graceful, artistic manner. Diane collects the seeds from her current plantings each fall. She also takes lots of cuttings, and in April she transfers everything into fresh soil, which she then transplants to her garden and numerous pots as the season permits. One of these plants is a variety of coleus, which she uses prolifically throughout her garden and her pots. It's also included in the old farm wagon, which she has creatively put together. To get the layered look in the wagon, she has planted king tut papyrus at the back, which grows to a height of 6 feet and creates a green wispy look against the red wall behind it. In front of that, she has 3 whiskey barrels with a variety of plantings and 2 long window boxes in front, which contain begonias and cascading petunias and sweet potato vines. Their north garden reminds me of an old-fashioned farm garden, including the old tried-and-true shade and partial sun plantings of hydrangea, ferns, coneflowers, phlox, and tall grasses. Under the pines, Diane has designed a total shade garden with plenty of hardy hostas and pots of white impatiens, which elegantly blend with the old lightning rods with their matching glass balls. A very restful place to sit and read on a hot summer day. The garden beyond is Diane's perennial garden. This garden holds the most color, as if it were recently peeled from a Thomas Kincaid painting. Several years ago, their daughter Corinne was married in this lovely garden. I asked Diane what makes her garden so lush, even into late summer when our gardens in Winona tend to start looking a little bare and dry. She said the secret is in the soil. First off, the soil on top of the ridge is heavier soil with more clay content than the sandier soil found in Winona's yards between the Mississippi and the lake. She also encourages gardeners to build their soil. She uses compost mixed with good old cow manure and lots of mulch, which keeps the water in. Even in dry weather, she only needs to water her garden once or twice a week. Each year, she also brings in a new planting, such as this year's new Prince Fountain grass, which is a stately annual that grows to 6 feet tall. She plans her garden with successions of blooms in mind, so that different flowers are popping up throughout the season, making the garden colorful all spring, summer, and fall. She likes to plant splashes of yellow, such as the black-eyed Susan, throughout the garden because they're so bright, like adding sunshine to the garden. Well, the gardens we've seen today have been absolutely incredible. I'd like to thank all the gardeners for all their hard work to present these beautiful gardens to us, and also the Women's Resource Center for sponsoring this great event. Thanks for joining me today. Please join me again next week. Till then, enjoy the spirit of the Heartland.